Suicidal rates are on the rise. 80% of suicides are completed by men. Men's loneliness is on the rise. They have seen a spike from 1990 to 2021, and it's going to be projected to get even worse. This is why I started normalizing men's mental health. Please tune in to the rest of the episode. Good afternoon. Wherever this message reaches you, I really hope William Stevens' story impresses you. He's a good dude. He reached out to me the other day. He's an Army veteran, retired after 20 years. 2 books that he has written. Book 1, The Mirror, the Black Edition, is released in 2018. The Broken Mirror was back in 2024. And he also had his memoirs that was released. William Stevens, how you doing today?
Hey, William, how you doing, man? Thank you for having me on. And thanks for all the veterans and active duty for their service, sacrifice.
Nice. I appreciate that. Tell me about why you wrote these books.
The first book was actually called The Mirror. So it's been branded twice. So the first book from age 19 all the way to probably 2017, I have been secretly, cryptically writing poetry. So the first book is therapeutic poetry. So it talks about combat, relationships, mom and dad, just everyday things. I have a lot of visions when I was in combat or when I was on guard duty. You know, you're out there by yourself as a soldier in the dark. You always have weird things thinking about, you know, what could happen if the big thing would go off or something like that. So little stories, all nonfiction, no characters, just me. I was the character. Um, I actually wrote that book to kind of damage a girl that I dated for 8 years in Colorado. There was a lot of pain there. Um, that book was written from pain. I thought that was going to be the first girl I was ever going to marry in my entire life. But thank God they sent me to Korea twice. So Fort Carson, 4 years, Korea 1, Carson 4, back to Korea, came back. She was sleeping with all my friends and she had skeletons. So a lot of writing. Hell, I even wrote about a 29-cent. Remember when stamps were 29 cents? I wrote in Korea about dropping my envelope to my girl, wondering if it was just going to be dropped into an empty box. And I wasted 29 cents on a stamp. So you never know when you're in Korea where your mail's going to go. So, but yeah, that whole book developed, was established probably near death of my father in 2017. Fast forward, I think it came out in 2018. I was under Book Venture. I was in like a $4,000 contract. I kind of got shammed out. I think I only received $200 check from them. And then I don't want to say they went to the island or scammed a bunch of authors, but I looked up their rating. They were like a 1.2. And then finally they were gone. So I would say thanks to them. It opened my eyes a little bit. When my book first dropped on Amazon, it sold out the first 3 weeks. I didn't even know it. I had no clue that my book was on Amazon. No one told me. And then a couple people told me, hey, we bought your book. And I saw a couple reviews and I was like, oh, wow. And I could figure out I was trying to figure out the whole KDP thing. Cause like I wasn't even on the internet yet. Like I hadn't even known social media because I was too busy taking care of my dad and doing stuff for my kid. And so that book sat in limbo for a while, a couple years. And then in 2024, after I was removed from the civilian government, I was terminated for having PTSD, fired over an email. I started writing. Actually, I rebranded the Mirror to the second edition. So it was the Mirror second edition. And I went under United Writers Organization, which they're an organization that help authors and also screw authors because some of the people that work for them They take your money behind the scenes and do their own private stuff. So the vision was, hey, you pay $100 and we'll rebrand your book. That's cool. And then on May 4th, I started because I had tremors talking to my phone and started doing audio monologues. And that's how The Broken Mirror was born. So that cost me about $400 to publish, but it never was published because all the cool cryptic videos and everything this guy was making to drop on Halloween um, never happened. Um, it was ready for release in August, September. Then I sold my house for 300,000, bought an RV, was out on the road helping veterans, people that have mental health issues, and homeless people. Uh, I went online and saw that the cryptic video was there, but it did stop. It locked up. And a lot of my friends I branded on Facebook and stuff and under my 1821 that this book was going to drop on Halloween because I retired from the army on Halloween. That's why I do everything cryptically at Halloween times. And it didn't. I was online on KDP fighting and scrambling, trying to figure out how to upload my manuscript and do all this stuff. And then finally, maybe 2 days later, it dropped. And it didn't sell a lot, but I bought a lot for the holidays to give books out to people who are struggling. A lot of people out there that don't have the money to buy, books. I have sold a lot of Kindles. They were $2.99, and then I think 300 people downloaded them over the holidays because it was free. I made them free for people who were struggling. So, and I don't get credit for that when they're free. So, um, then uh, I don't even know how I got nominated for the Eric Hopper Award. I was out on the road and heard that I was nominated for the Eric Hopper Award, and then I won the two National Book Awards in March, and I did not get presented until July. So, um, The Broken Mirror is a two-time award-winning nominated Eric Hopper Award, International Impact Book Award, two times military, self-help, self-development, and also reviewed by the U.S. Book Review. Very Both of my books had to be approved by the Pentagon because of my clearance level. And when I talk about the VA, long-term medication use, military transition, going from military to civilian, death and dying, suicide, the broken bond between my kid. So the Broken Mirror is a mental health tool for your mental toolbox, and the apology for the broken bond between me and my kid. And now that book is on Audible, and it's on 18 different audiobook platforms, thanks to Brookside Press in Canada. And the narrator is from California. He is an Army veteran as well. So he took my audio clips I did out on the road that I have on Spotify for people to download for free on 1821 Productions Spotify, where you can hear my raw voice recorded for my daughter because we all know Gen Zs don't read books, they listen to everything. So
So
um,
it's quite a
now
bit.
I'm sorry. And
Go
then
ahead.
now I'm currently working on my memoir, From a Skateboarder to an Entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur doesn't have to be rich. It's the platform that I'm building.
Yeah, it sounds like there's quite a bit of history between your books, going all the way back to when you were a kid. Quite a bit of hurt. A woman that you once loved, actually, you felt burned by. It sound like we were talking before offline about how a little bit about your childhood, how your development and actually your trust was actually formed. And we talked about a little bit about the what you said back then they called it discipline because you're 56 years old. Now we call it child abuse. But to get into that a little bit more before, because I want to give you plenty of time in the back end to talk about why you wrote these books, and I wanted to try to stay more towards being on course. If you don't mind, can you tell me about where you grew up and a little bit about your life?
I am originally from, and I have to plug in here, sorry. I'm originally from Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Sorry. I gotta plug in. My phone's about to die. I'm originally from Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Um, Born and raised. Hold on for a second. I don't know why I was doing this. Sorry, man. Technical difficulties here. Okay, we're good now. I'm plugged in now. Um, yeah, I come from a middle class family. My parents didn't have a car. Very toxic childhood. See PTSD. You know, I thought it was childhood PTSD, but it's called something else. When we talked about cognitive PTSD,
Complex. Complex.
complex.
So, what the difference between complex PTSD and PTSD, when they really talk about a lot of times, PTSD is one traumatic event. Complex means that there's multitude of traumatic events, and it makes it even more difficult to pretty much unroot from the brain.
Isn't that where you fall into the bipolar and bipolar 2 disorder type?
So you can have symptoms, but I cannot actually talk about that. I know one of my buddies, when I served with, he was diagnosed with bipolar after we got back from Iraq. But they have overlapping symptoms based off of the DSM-5.
Okay. So yeah, it was a very toxic environment with my father being a drunk, an alcoholic. Um, like I said, I don't know how my sister escaped it. My sister was kind of like mentally retarded. So she kind of did her own thing, sat on the porch with the radio and didn't hang out with my dad, always dodged him for some reason, but I always seemed to be the target. And then my mom was a target, you know, spousal abuse. Like I said, I thought it was discipline growing up. I didn't think it was child abuse. But then I thought about it, I brought a girl to the house. I was 16, walking up the steps, and my dad shillings the belt like a whip, and the buckle hit me on the leg in front of her. And that was called out, like first time I ever heard child abuse, like why is this father hitting his son in front of this young girl? You know, she just came over. We were friends, and she never came back because she was scared to death. My father always scared my friends away. Uh, my friends call my family the monsters. My mom was obese. My dad was a drunk. My sister was mentally retarded, and I was a skateboarder kid like Eddie Monster.
So I do want to actually just I know you mental retardation is definitely something that has been talking about, and retardation is something that's more slower. The word that would be better off to be used is mentally disabled. And
Okay.
the only reason I'm actually saying that is because like the retardation actually has a huge stigma behind it. And I don't want to say that people don't like to be called it, but I'm a person that likes words and I like to understand like we have retarders on car, we could actually believe somebody's mentally disabled. And instead of actually trying to put them in a slower area. I appreciate that.
Yeah, my sister was slow. Uh, she got held back in kindergarten 3 times and then somehow was moved up immediately to 3rd grade. So, I grew up with that word. I'm sorry. I should have just slow. Um, but
No, William, it's okay. I totally understand where you're coming from.
mm,
Based off of the past DSMs, they would actually have that exact word in it,
okay.
and it became such a slang word that it actually has so much negative stigma behind it. So I understand where you're coming from, and just to be able to be I'm just trying to be cognizant of the people that are listening to it, and I just thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I probably won't bring up my sister no more because she just recently passed away. So now all my family members are dead except for my daughter. So yeah. And I had nothing left, so I joined the army. And at 19 years old, after the day after Christmas in '90, I was sitting at the port. in Doha, Saudi Arabia, actually. Yeah, sitting at the port waiting for our equipment to come off the ship. So
It's, it before we actually get into, like, you leaving for the army, you said that your dad did 2 tours over in Korea, is that correct?
Korean War, Korean War veteran. So he, I found out more about my father when I was taking care of him after 2017 because he would make me breakfast and dinner at night because I was always there. I gave up my whole social life to be with my dad before he died. And I think that I don't blame it on me, but if I was there the night that he fell off the couch and had a stroke, maybe I could have saved him, but we didn't find him until the next morning. But uh, long story short, my dad disclosed to me that he got out as a PFC. He went as an E1 private to Korea and then again at PFC. And he was at Pork Chop Hill, which was, from what I heard, very bad area.
Yeah, the Korean War was actually pretty nasty, and especially they didn't have the same homecoming. They had a little bit of a better homecoming than Vietnam, but Korea War is actually heavily forgotten a lot of times because it's sandwiched between Vietnam and World War II. And
Hmm.
like we were talking before, it's especially with guys that are actually don't know how to communicate very effectively. We go back to that instant gratification or that instant demands for discipline. Very similar to if you're yelling at your Joes or if you're under gunfire, you're not gonna say, "Hey, can you please stop this?" You're gonna actually return fire, you're gonna be able to engage, and how that actually impacted you, because even when you're talking about your dad from what you shared before, like, you actually can it sounds like you have 2 different perspectives, like, you have the love and empathy and passion f comparing for your dad, and then you also have that other part that was a little bit rough growing up. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes.
And Um, what about your mom? How was she when you were growing up?
My mom was a very beautiful woman. And then, um, I don't know, I started noticing a pattern of my dad, like, being abusive to my mom. I think my mom just gave up and got, like, very, very obese, like, eating a lot of food to get out of, like, away from her demons. They didn't have a car, so they didn't go anywhere, so she just sat around all the time, never went out and walked around, and I was never home because I was a skateboarder kid, always out with my friends, and, you couldn't pick up the cell phone, you had to be out with them constantly on the street, you know? There was no communication, it was all, like, verbal communication, and, um, I think the best time with my mom was Christmas times because, like, that's when everything was happy at Christmas time, like, the big Christmases, all the gifts all over the place, like, that doesn't happen no more. We did that with my kid, but, um, yeah, eventually when you get older, all that goes away, and, you know, uh I think where my parents' health went downhill is when my 34-year-old sister moved in with them and lived off them with her 3 kids because her husband didn't want her, and I came back from Korea, my first tour in Korea, because, uh actually, I didn't have to come back, but I came back because my first vehicle I ever had was sitting in the backyard and a tree fell on it. I crushed it. So they didn't know what to do. So I had to come home and get someone to cut up the tree and get rid of the vehicle. But when I came home, I noticed that the kids and my sister were living at my parents' house, and it was like a hoarder house. Like, 20 years. This is the house I grew up in. Like, what just happened here? I'd go upstairs and talk to the boys. There'd be feces on the ground. The beds are broke, everything. And my sister didn't care. And I had to make a decision where I had to move my parents out of that house. So I got with the realtor who actually sold in the house. I kind of like evicted my sister and her kids. I said, look, we're going to move all your stuff out on the porch and your husband's going to come get your stuff because they their health is going downhill, and they need to move into an apartment. So I moved my parents into Hanover Manor Apartments in Carlisle and stayed and cleaned up the house. I was on like emergency leave for like 20 days. I extended and cleaned up the house, and we sold it. And whatever money they had left, it wasn't a lot because they still owed. I believe we did the funeral stuff for my parents, like set up the funeral arrangements and all that. And the kids didn't get anything, and I didn't get anything. And I think only the realtor got a little bit out of it. So it was kind of like this house is up for grabs. So, you know, something I cherished for like 20 years. I couldn't believe was gone so quick, the childhood dream. But yeah, my mom died in 2014 at the nursing home in front of my daughter. My daughter asked me what's wrong with Grammy Sue, and I said, I think she's sleeping, Isabel. And 2 hours later, they called me after I left and said your mom had passed away. I'm like, yeah, no, yeah. She had a full goatee, her eyes were up in her head, and yeah. So I would just say that they probably were going to put me in a straitjacket because I went absolutely nuts because I found out that they weren't taking care of my mom. Nursing homes do that. The staff is not fully trained. So um, my mom died, and that was a time where I wanted to commit suicide because, like, I'm in a 10-year marriage with no intimacy. The only thing keeping me there is my daughter between us at night. I wished every night when I went to bed that I would die. And then my dad reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've been a terrible father, but I need you to come be with me because I can't do it without you or your mom being here." So I forgot all that and I went and took care of my dad. So, yeah.
You said quite a bit of it I wanted to, go back to. One was actually the house that you came back to after you grew up in. Then you went to Korea, and then you came back, and you noticed that your sister was living in there, and the kids were not really caring about your family or your mom and dad. The things were breaking. You talked about you really hinted about your mom having her own bouts of depression during this time. You alluded to, how your dad was also like he was not able to, really connect with the kids. He was actually kind of withstand hoarding from what I've actually seen in my past and even with my present day family and my mom. It's like this attachment. It's like they don't want this thing to leave them anymore. And it's hard to
It
be able to
it
go
wasn't
ahead.
my parents. It was my sister hoarding her stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, keeping all her stuff there. Her husband didn't want anything because, like, she was obese too. Like, she gave up. She didn't care about herself at all.
Like, yeah, and the obesity, a lot of times when we actually look at it, at least from my understanding and from like what I've been learning about in school and then also working with people, is that the obesity is sometimes is to not have that unwanted sexual attention from people harassing them, whistling at them, to even touching them. And it's a way to keep themselves less desirable. I'm not saying for all, but that's for some. And there's usually underlining trauma that has created this type of self narrative that is being physically manifested.
Yeah, I don't think I ever, when I was a child, like some kids catch their parents doing things. I don't think I ever thought my parents ever did anything. Like, I grew up, I think I was all the way 17 or 18 that I knew about girls. Like, I didn't know what was, I don't think any of that happened in our house. Really, I don't, because I think that my mom hated my dad hated my mom, and they stayed for the kids. Really, you know? I don't think there was anything going on because, like, I don't think my dad could even attempt to even try. He was so drunk all the time.
Yeah, the alcohol thing is actually that's it became normal, at least in my life, and also even some of my friends' lives, where dad would come home from work and he's completely two sheets to the wind, falling asleep in his food, uh, or just actually just being really, really mean. And it's like you realize that people are drinking to be able to escape. And like I've had this conversation with other people, one of the gateway to addiction is trauma. And that's why I mentioned before about your dad being in Korea, the Korea War. It's about like how people connect to other individuals and not being able to articulate it. Think I read the VFW, but that's also such a drinking culture, and it's also a way to not be able to connect as well.
Well, I know my mother told me that my dad was in the military, but I never knew that he was in the Korean War until finally when I started living with him again.
Yeah,
And I didn't even know what war trauma was. I mean, I didn't even know what the army was basically. Like I said, I was a skateboarder kid. My whole world evolved around skateboarding and alternative music and rap a little bit here and there, and that was my life, you know? But I had to come home and hear creepy freaking country music. My dad would stand out there and moan and groan and try to sing songs, and that was what was on the radio at the house, you know? And it was you're not changing the channel or you're getting your ass beat, you know?
yeah,
So,
y- yeah. I remember being the human changer myself, where it's like, go change the channel. We asked before we had remote controls in the house, but we would also avoid my father as well to just be able to not have to deal with the wrath. I can understand why you became that skateboarder kid just to be able to get out of the house and have a little bit of freedom.
mhm. And
So,
you
go
dare
ahead.
talk back.
Mhm.
Like when they threw you in the corner, you stayed in the corner. You didn't get out of the corner. You stayed there until they like fell asleep or went in another room. Then you picked your butt up out of the corner and went back upstairs and cried because like back then you could try to tell your friends or tell other people at school and stuff, but no one cared. Back then, no one cared. Really, they don't. But now there are actually people that are going after relatives and family from back then, kind of like a retroactive type thing for abuse, you know? And I'm like, well, my parents are gone, you know? So, and like I told you earlier, when we were talking before the interview, I'm the way I am today is because I was brought up the way I was. Because when I became a non commissioned officer in the Army, I was ruthless. I didn't care about nobody. I I believed there was one thing, and that was the mission. And I always figured out, you know, when I did start taking care of soldiers, is the way you talk to them. Because like I came up in the old army, you know, it was no please and thank you. There was no cell phone. You know, if you did something wrong, they beat it into you or instilled it into you. So leadership and credibility, all that was all instilled into me, like manually instilled into me. And when I was in basic at like the Q, like the course where you're with your rifle, like when I got out of basic, the only thing that went through my head was kill. Remember when you're at the range and it's like kill, kill, kill. That's the only thing that went through my head. Like when I went to Germany, was like I'm ready to kill. Like I'm a killer, you know. But I didn't think that they were going to throw me in a combat situation like that. That was a whole different ordeal right there. So,
It's yeah, like the Army, the Marine Corps, and the other branches, and especially the Army and the Marine Corps, they teach you how to be compliant to orders and be very quick with it. And the reason is that, like, when you have rounds going over you, you wanna be able to fully engage. You don't wanna be thinking about it. But the aspect that taught you how to survive, they didn't teach you how to live, and that's the hard part about us is being able to learn how to relive again. Because unfortunately, the way that we are trained is like, "Hey, you're gonna do this right now," but they don't know why. They don't understand why. And we also live in a world now where most people are never going to see a war or need to be obedient to action orders, and it makes it difficult to communicate. But going so when I think about like what you said about people being retroactively punished, well, this is the mindset back then. And unfortunately, that was a very poverty mindset. And blaming people only based off of their understanding is wrong to me. I believe that you need to be able to have empathy for people that did not know what they didn't know at that point.
Yeah. I just think that, no, I never did that, but like I said, in today's world, people are going back and trying to get their parents, or like I said, relatives, or even like a stepmom or something. Like, I hear a lot of people saying they grew up with their aunt and uncle. I barely knew my aunts and uncles. Like, I knew my mom had a sister Doe, my aunt Doe, Gloria, and I believe if it wasn't for her, my parents wouldn't have survived. Like, my parents worked at a carpet factory. Like, I didn't I never saw $100 bill in my entire life. And when me and my dad were walking one day to go get groceries, I found a $100 bill on the ground. And my dad asked me what I was going to do with that. And I said, I'm going to go buy me an HO train set. So I went and got me an HO train set. And my dad was asking me while we were at the military, because we lived near the Carlisle Army War College. We would walk out there across a little bridge and go to the little PX or commissary. I remember my dad saying, "Hey, can I get $25 for alcohol?" And I'm like, "No, it's my money. You know, you have a job, and I'm only like 10 or 11 years old, and I'll never see another $100. I never saw another $100 in my entire life." But it was funny because when my daughter came into this world, my mom and dad were just throwing money at her, like helping us. If it wasn't for my mom and dad and my ex-wife Kelly and her parents, even after I got out of the military, the grass wasn't greener. Like, we were struggling. Like, I had a 1963 classic Corvair since I was 19 years old. I bought that car for 1,200 bucks. I sold that car for 12 grand. That car was in mint condition. That was like my escape when I was at home with my wife and my daughter. Like, if I wasn't yelling at them, I was in the garage cleaning the engine and getting it ready for a car show, or taking it to the Carlisle car shows or Corvair Corsa, always winning and stuff. And then my wife came to me and said, "It needs to stop. We need to sell this car for diapers and wipes, and we need to get a vehicle for Isabel. And you're out here revving up the engine every day, not even paying attention to your kid." I'm like, I'm so zombified, with medication and stuff. Like, I got out of Walter Reed, I think I was on 10 different bottles of pills. Now I'm only on 3, and one of them I'm being weaned off of for diabetes. Got diabetes when I was 43, now I'm 56. I beat diabetes when I was 55 while I was out on the road in my RV. So,
So do you so I know we just jumped around quite a bit, like, you, beat diabetes, you were on medication after you went to Walter Reed. Um, what brought you to Walter Reed?
on my 5th combat tour, I was part of a combat arms assessment team. So I was a observer controller trainer for the Army in New Cumberland, Pennsylvania, and I was selected as a 5-man assessment team. So, I got assigned there in 2004 after I came back from my 4th combat tour from Port Riley. Um, our mission was to train National Guard and reserves, like evaluate artillery. And then I think in 2005, our mission changed when the whole OIF, there started to be a threat. We, I believe, moved to Fort Dix, New Jersey. So it's kind of like, screw your family. We're taking all your guys. 50 sergeant first classes, one master sergeant, one sergeant major, one lieutenant colonel, and a couple majors and a captain. We all went up to the hotel in New Jersey, locked and loaded, ready to go. And we started from scratch. We set up like lanes, and the Army came in and saw us doing this and gave us all this money, and they built mock cities and all that. So we were started training soldiers for Afghanistan and Iraq. And near the end of that, uh, 5 of us were selected. I would say volunteered, I guess you could say. I didn't have a family. I only had a fiance, and they were like, "You, Stevens," because it was one person from every team, and they were like, "Stevens, you're gone because you have the intel background, and you also work the S2 with the security clearances. So you're going to take care of like the operation orders and stuff like that. and then another guy was a weapons guy, but, like, we didn't have no weapons, like, we had walkie-talkies and sunglasses, that was our MTEL, Mission Essential Task Listing, and I remember when we were sitting in this room together, we all wrote, like, our death letters. It's like, "Why are we writing this?" Like, I never wrote this when I was in combat before. "Why are we doing this?" They were like, "Well, here's no weapons," you know? So, long story short, we go over, collect the data. I come back, my sergeant major tells me, "Hey, you guys did a great job, you know, this wasn't for awards or anything like that. Uh, sorry, you're not gonna be selected to master sergeant. You have an attitude problem. You have, major issues with anxiety and stuff." And I'm thinking to myself, what in the hell did I just go do my fit? Why did I just go over there? What did I get volunteered to go there for? So the only thing I got out of that was contributing author of the book, Security Forces Handbook 0602 from Center of Army Lessons Learned. And I went and talked to my fiance. She was a psych nurse. So she said, "Is there any programs that you can go get help? Because like we've already had a miscarriage." And eventually she was pregnant with Isabel, w- with our with a girl. We didn't even know her name yet. And I said, "I think I know of a place called the Wounded Warrior Transition Unit, but I have to go get an evaluation to get there." So I drove down to Walter Reed while we were on break. Went in, got an evaluation. It took like 2 hours. Didn't think I would hear anything back from them. Didn't even really think I had a problem. Then award orders came to my unit, and basically I was like attached to WTU. And then my sergeant major is like, "How are you leaving us? How are you going away from us? Like you have a job." I was like, "Well, I just got assigned. Now I'm attached. Now I'm assigned to the Wounded Warrior Transition Unit." So, and I didn't even know what to expect. Like walking into that place was just, I want to say, probably the worst situation I've ever been in my entire life. I'm in uniform, sergeant first class. I walk up in there. My boss or superior is a colonel getting ready to retire, but my squad leader is an E6, a staff sergeant, and told me that he outranked me by position. And they're already throwing rank around and positions. But when I went to like the guest house and saw people with no arms and legs and people blown up and burned up, and I think the thing that resonated me the most was I'm sitting in the guest house in my uniform, and this guy walked up. He was all black clothes and he had a patch over his eye. And I kind of felt bad, but I didn't feel that I needed to be there. This guy sat down and said, "Hey, Sergeant First Class, thank you for your service." He said, "I want you to remember one thing: all wounds are not visible." And he lifted up his patch on his eye, and it was like hollowed out, but he had like a black eye with a gold skull in it. And if you want to know creepy, that was the creepiest thing that I've ever seen in my entire life. Because like he's like, "If I can do it, you can do it." And I was just thinking, like, all these people here, all these soldiers coming off the battlefield, like, what is actually going through in their mind when they don't have they have a missing limb or a missing leg or something? Because like it was almost like they didn't care about the PTSD. They were there to get healed and get out of there and go and start something because like every week they had job fairs. I didn't even know what that was about. I always saw them taking the ones that were severely wounded and trying to put them into different positions and trying to incorporate them into different government agencies and stuff. And I'm like, what about me? You know, my wounds were on the inside. And um, I met 11 other people in my group, and we were all known by first name. We were not allowed to wear a name tag in the facility, in the kind of inpatient, outpatient psych unit. Um, we had to wear a uniform. We couldn't wear rank. We all sat zombified for hours waiting for these. I want to say interns. They weren't even real doctors. And the other thing was that they were all from different countries. They were like most of the people that I saw were all like Indian, and I couldn't understand them because like we were so zombified, sitting in this room all by ourselves, waiting to get like 4 hours just to get a consultation or someone talk, and then like our daily thing was, um, what was it at Walter Reed? We would go in the classroom. We had a whiteboard, and the 12 of us we had to describe our day. We had a black marker and a red marker, and most of the days were red for pain and blood. But eventually it changed to like red and black, and then eventually black. But I was waiting to play Duck Duck Goose because like we would do charades. They handed us like the childhood scissors that were like dull to cut out magazine stuff and describe our day. I absolutely thought it was a joke. But then what the realization came when each person in the group came out and told their story. And that happened at any time during our, I want to say, our reintegration, back to civilian life. Because I found out the reason I was there and the reason why they selected me is because they asked me about bringing the battlefield home to the living room. And I was like trying to figure out because they thought that I wanted to unalive my wife and my daughter. So, and I've always heard that some soldiers come back and think the home is the battlefield and they take it out on their family. So, uh, that's part of my new memoir where I talk about the living room is not a battlefield. So, um, but I did find out one thing when I was at Walter Reed. PTSD is not just combat. It's also sexual because I won't say their names, but we had a staff sergeant, a female staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. And if you know, female staff sergeants in the Marine Corps are nothing to play with. Like to get that rank, you actually have to earn that rank as a staff sergeant. So this female was a recruiter because we always wondering, she was always wearing her dress, brown, blue, whatever they are, very sharp, never spoke to anyone. She had a huge ribbon rack, no combat ribbons because we were trying to do, back in a hotel room or back in the barracks room, like trying to figure out what awards she had. But when she came out, she was the last one to come out. She came out at the end and said that everybody had an amazing story because she was the last to come out. Like we were getting ready to like leave this. I don't want to say graduate, but like excel to civilian to go home. And she came out and said that she was brutally raped and abducted in her recruiting office by her commander and first sergeant. And her husband was in the next room and he didn't even know. She was there for protective custody because she was about to take down her whole command because of what they do to females in the Marine Corps like that.
So the females and
It opened my eyes because I was in tears because I was like, damn, I thought all these people in here were for combat. Like, I didn't even know that sexual trauma was PTSD or type of trauma. And that's why when I rebranded the mirror, I rebranded from veterans to everyone. And now my mission, I'm broadening from veterans to anyone that's suffering, homeless people, because whatever trauma you have, I'm not a doctor or a therapist, but I think I've been there in a lot of the situations. Not as high as some people are, maybe a little bit down here, but I have taken some online courses to kind of like understand the whole situation so that when people go, oh, you don't have no certifications, like I can actually pull up my phone and go, yeah, I actually sat down for 8 hours and did some courses. And how about we talk about my two books? Or how about we talk about why I give books away or why I wrote those books? Not because I wanted to be a famous author. Definitely didn't think that was ever going to happen. So,
so you touched on a lot of different stuff. You said the battlefield at home, which where a lot of times our fathers will come back from the war and they will be kind of very similar to it, but it's different. It doesn't mean that they're unaliving people, but it's also the way that they communicate and what they're really looking for. or
or
they actually say again?
or they commit suicide.
Yep, or they commit suicide. The other area that you touched on with the females, uh, to be honest, after working at the VA for the last 21 months, actually, no, 31 months, I've learned quite a bit that, the MST rating is extremely high in females, and it's almost military sexual trauma, it's almost damn near 50 to 60% from what it seems like. At least the ones that actually report. They say it's about one third, but those are the ones that report it. The other aspect to it is that you have these people that are looking for power, and it's not always about the sexual gratification. They're looking for power over other individuals, and it is a death sentence, and they take it away. Like you said before, it's like getting a death sentence without parole, and people not being able to trust the individuals in the same uniform. The ones that were supposed to be there to watch their back, their brothers, their sisters in arms, and then all of a sudden that they get screwed over. And I appreciate you talking about your experience in the wounded warrior transition. It's the the thing that I think was kinda neat was they're having you guys think about it a little bit more abstractly. Tell us about your day by cutting this out. Do this, add this, and having you really look at it from different angles instead of just only be able to say, "Here, this is what it is," and blah. And making you have abstract way of thinking about the situation so that it doesn't be as cumbersome.
We also did, I forgot to say, light therapy. They would put
Ye
us like in a closet, and there would be like red light bulbs and white light bulbs, and we would have triggers in our hand, little buttons, like when you do the hearing test.
Mhm.
We'd sit in the dark, and it would start out real slow, like red light. You click the red light, white light. You click the white light, and then it was like multiple flashes, and you had the response. And the computer was grading your response to different lights and different sounds. Like if it would flash like 3 times red, you had to click the button real quick, red. If you only clicked it one time, your response was slow, you know, kind of like the hearing test, but with lights. And I heard now what's weird is with the red lights, the reason why they use the red lights is because now they have the glasses that have the red lenses to kind of like lower. I don't really understand the whole red lens thing, but people wear these different glasses to like so they don't get headaches at night. It blocks out things. So when I went back and did my research about why were the light bulbs red, why were the light bulbs white, and why am I on this medication? Because they just give you medication and you don't even know what the heck you're taking. So at night when we sat, because like I said, they gave us the computer and we weren't allowed to send emails. Everything was monitored. So we would go online and a couple of us would sit in the room and go, okay, what kind of meds are you on? And we would look it up and figure out like, is this really helping us? Because like I was on lithium and you know what? I don't know if you know what lithium does to you, but uh, when I was at Walter Reed, I had a double bridge and crown in my mouth. And I took care of my teeth, but lithium makes your teeth fall out. Yeah. Proof right here.
Jeez.
So I could spend all the money to get new teeth, but I don't want to because I want to prove to people that the lithium that I was taking when I was all drugged up, this is what it does to humans right here. It makes your teeth rot slowly and make them crumble. But I was on high doses of lithium to control my anger and my mood where I was at.
What do you do now to control your mood and your anger or your emotional
So
responses?
I'm on my one bottle I'm on is fluoxetine. I'm on a high blood pressure med, and then I was on a diabetic med. So I've come off of the other ones. I don't remember what they were, but I have coping mechanisms that I wrote in my second book. Um, Migraine beanie, kind of like frozen or refrigerate when you have a headache instead of taking pills for headaches or migraines. Coolant blankets, real thin coolant blankets, coolant pillows. And I'm not talking about like going to TJ Maxx and getting the bullshit. I'm talking about getting the real stuff. Because when the animals lay on them and they're cool, the animals know that's it's a cool area. And I also have a weighted blanket to compress your body. Weighted blankets compress the body. Like I even tried the device where there's a bracelet and it sends signals to your wrist to help you sleep. Have you seen that? It's like $300. It's a waste of time because I thought I was shock treatments when I was laying there at night. So I returned the bracelet to the company and got my money back. But now, like I'm not intimate with people, so it's my dogs. It was my cat, but I had to get rid of my cat because I live here in the studio and they let me have cat, only one animal. But my RV mission really cleared my head. Like I don't think you know what if you don't know what it's like to go out to campgrounds and be at gas stations and talk to some of these people that are actually hurting, real homeless people, people struggling on the highway, people broke down at campgrounds, people that can't even afford to leave the campground. They are so in debt that they sell their RV on the spot just to get a bus ticket to go home or something. I do know my book has saved a few people's lives. Just recently, I was in Davenport, Florida. I was at a campground for 6 months because my ex-wife. Do you remember when the executive order was signed? And so my ex-wife worked in outreach VA psych, and they cut all that. I don't know where in a certain area, but in Florida, they pulled all the psych back into the VA, and she lost her job. So I stayed down in Florida. And while I was down in Florida with my kid, I met a gentleman who was 25 years Master Chief, Master at Arms, right? Master at Arms, Master Chief
That's
in the Navy,
Navy.
Master at Arms in the Navy.
So
I believe that.
Master
So his son was going to join the Navy, and he was there to help his son get into MEPS. And on his way, his son was killed in a head on collision on the way down to Florida. So this guy was sitting in I want to say, the RV park office. And I had already given my book to the lady that worked there because she was going through some crazy stuff herself, trauma. And she said, "Hey, I think it would be nice if I gave my book to him. And I think that you should talk to him." And I'm like, and I thought about it because like I had never fell into that situation before. I talked to someone that's suicidal because I'm not a doctor or a lawyer, but I've been there. And I sat down with him and I was like, "Hey, you know, you always have something to talk to. And if you want to come over to the RV, we can hang out. I can make you some food." But I said, "I really would like you to take this book." And he said, "What's this about?" And I said, "Well, if there's something in here that would make you feel you are enough, then I have done my job as an author and an advocate for veterans for PTSD." And he said, "Oh, you're one of those." He goes, is that what you're doing out here? I'm like, "Yeah, I help veterans." So I gave him the book and he left. And I told the lady, "You might want to watch him because like he is suicidal." And next thing I know, I'm walking the dog. I go to his RV to check in on him and he's gone. Like he's gone for like 3 days. Like I know where he went. But I guess when he got back, he got like was throwing up blood and it was coming out the back. And he went to the hospital to the ER and he took my book with him. And he read my book while he was at the hospital. And I talked to him when he got back and he said, "If you have not given me this book, I would not be here today." He goes, "Do you know what it's like to lose a child?" I said, "No." I said, "Maybe, but I didn't know the child." I said, "My ex-wife had a miscarriage when I was out on the lane teaching soldiers. And the same day she had a miscarriage, I had a panic attack and passed out. So I think I know when I was in the hospital and I couldn't come home to reassure her because she had a miscarriage. I said, that is the daughter or the son that I lost that I didn't know." And he said, "Your book saved my life, man." And I said, "You know what? That's better than any Amazon review." when you can credibly have someone tell you to your face that the quality of work that you do, not for trophies, not to be an award winning author, saves people's lives. So uh, I didn't even tell him, I'm like, hey, man, we do an Amazon review. I was like, I'm just going to keep that in my head. I'm not going to use your name, but I will use that as an example. And I never heard from him ever again. Like I went to go check on him and he like packed up and left. I mean, I'm sure he was in a very broken world. I mean, like his son was about to follow in his footsteps. So, and I believe he had a lot of firearms too, because like after the military, he was also a police officer. So most military go into some kind of law enforcement or first responder type, you know. But I'm glad that I met that gentleman. I've met other people out on the road uh, that have been in really bad situations and don't have time to read. And that's why I created the audiobook because there's a lot of people out there struggling. And when you're drugged up on the pills, you're not coherent. You can't understand what you're reading. Cause when I read, I get a headache. I, I just can't read, you know, like I'm struggling right now working with the girl that I'm working with, who's a award winning author. We sat on the phone last night for 3 hours, and you think that just drove me crazy. Where she's South African, got that accent, talking to me, which she's in the United States, and trying to understand her and trying to tell her as I'm reading line by line by line, thinking like, God, I just want to get pissed off at her, you know, because like she's not listening to me. But I was very like very calm, cool, collective because this memoir is going to be something that I want people to see. So
So you actually were able to delay the gratification of actually being upset and telling her off because you knew it was more valuable. The thing I was thinking about when you were talking about that gentleman, when you gave him your book and you helped save his life, and you have not really talked to people that were suicidal. There's a few programs out there. They're called QPR Assist and Psych Armor. You, they're free to go attend, especially Psych Armor as well. They are help you be able to question, proceed, and then refocus your attention to somewhere else. And the classes are free. They're a few hours long. They're good for a year. Over here in Montana, we've actually been pushing out more towards the rural areas because they have a lot less mental health professionals, and it's helping people save their lives or being able to postpone that those intensity of emotions to not want to complete because of feeling overwhelmed. And that's why they talk about freezing keys if you know that you're actually feeling suicidal or changing your lock on your gun safe. But what I was going to get to is that you said before that, which was you use like an ice cap for your head to be able to help out with your anxiety and stuff.
keep talking.
There's dialectical behavioral therapy. They have these. Yep, they have these four things that they go off of as part of the treatments. It's called T stands for tip of the temperature. When you actually make yourself cold, it brings up your somatic sense. It brings you more here and concentrates between your brain and your body. Same thing with intensive exercise. You're able to release your emotion. You get your heart rate up. You get your body feeling paired muscle relaxation. And then you have the last P is for paced breathing, where you start to do more box breathing and get yourself synchronized. Because when you're starting to feel overwhelmed with your emotions, these are really good tools to use when you're starting to feel like some things are coming on. But yes, I totally agree with what you were saying. I think it was actually, I'm glad to hear about how your story of what you shared helped save another man's life. Um,
I think my morning mental health message that I do on Facebook every day saves people. Have a guy, he's called the suicide something. He reached out to me a couple days ago and was like, "Hey man, uh, I'll send you the money. I've been following you for a while." Like, yeah, I've seen you, you know. And I only have like 1.5K followers because I don't want like 10 million followers because like I interact with my people. I try to interact with as many people as I can on a daily basis. So he's like, "Hey, I'll send you the money." I'm like, "Dude, you ain't got to send me the money." Like he's getting ready to go to like some kind of rehab or a therapy session for suicidal, and makes videos online with him and his daughter. And I'm like, "Yo, man, I'll send you my books." I He wanted a hard copy of The Broken Mirror, but there was only a few. So he said, "I want you to sign it hashtag 988 and your name." And that's what I did. I went to my RV and I got The Mirror, the actual first hardback that I ever had. That was my copy. Signed it 988, put my bookmark in it, and I have a lapel pin too. So I went and FedExed that to him, and I didn't ask him for no money or anything. He's supposed to get it Tuesday, and
Nice.
his wife is going to pick it up and take it to him at the rehab center. So um, I think my morning message went from like 2 followers or 2 views to like 100 and some views a day.
Nice.
So I believe my mental health platform will eventually grow. I've also added cooking with Stevo. That's where a lot of people that have mental issues, they'll cook food or go to restaurants and eat and take pictures of real. You have see people always take pictures online of their goofy food and stuff. Well, I have a page where people can put it on there and write something cool about it to like bring them down. And I don't try to push my books on that page. I have story time with Stevo group where I read. I actually sit and read my book from both of my books because there's a lot of people that don't have money to buy the book and would not want to hear someone else read it. So they were like, "Well, is this guy real?" Well, here I am actually reading out of my book, you know. And I did a lot of that when I was in my RV. So story time with Stevo, and then me and two other moderators that I help have, we've created the blacklist, and that's where I've been scammed by marketers, fake authors, people saying, "Hey, you won the lottery, give us your personal information." The blacklist is on Facebook group where we call out all the scammers. So we went from 2 people, and I think we're now up to about 120. And then my final is crawl, walk, run. So there are 855 definitions of leadership, and they're always big, stupid definitions, corporate and military. So I said, when I went through all my leadership courses, the only thing leadership means to me is crawl, walk, run, coach, teach, mentor. So I created a page where it's like a baby, somebody walking and somebody running. And I do military leadership and corporate leadership on my page. So those are groups that I have under my platform to like draw people in and talk to them. And eventually I send out my QR codes to people. And I always tell people, "Hey, you ain't got to buy my audiobook, but if you sample it, you'll be captivated. I guarantee you that you will buy it." Like, I'm not asking you to buy it because it's on 13, 14 different platforms. But once you hear the narrator that's a veteran and he starts reading because he took, like I said, the audios that I did for my kid, he listened to all those audios before he even did anything. Because, if you pay a voiceover or a narrator, they're only going to read the words and they're going to get money for how many words there are. They don't care about your book. They don't care about you. It's a product. They get paid for it. But this guy, he was so good that the Mirror Black Edition will be dropping on Halloween as well. He is narrating that book right now. And in about 20 days, I will have that completed before it drops. So, yeah.
So, William, you sound like you're such a good dude. You've been helping out a lot of people through your own journey. You wrote a couple books, you're releasing your memoir soon. You got multiple platforms where you continuously give out to people. What do you do for yourself to be able to give back to you?
Get back to me.
Yeah.
Uh, so at one time I wasn't a giver. Like, I think I give too much because when I was out at the RV park, there was a family that was struggling. I gave them 500. Well, I didn't give them $500. I paid the RV park for them to stay. And the only reason I did that is because the kid came over and helped me put my bike rack together on the back of my RV. And then I found out that they were struggling and they had a World War II veteran living. His grandfather was a World War II veteran. And they went away and I met the old guy. He had like, I don't want to say I don't know what he had. Hell, I don't even know if maybe he was a Vietnam veteran, but I think he had Agent Orange points because he had scabs all over his body and stuff. And that just ignited my fire because, like, I was like, no one's helping you all. They got evicted from their house in Florida. So I went to the front office and gave them $500 for this guy, for this family to live there. But then I kicked myself in the ass because, like, they left after the holidays because they didn't have no money. And then they came back and acted like they didn't even know who I was. They parked in the same spot behind me. I was still there because I was there for my child, my daughter. They didn't talk to me, they didn't look at me, and he wasn't there no more. So I don't know if he died or what. But sometimes I'm too outgiving. But recently what I did was I had some sundry kits and was it sundry kits that people put together for me that I gave away last year before I left. No, the year before I left, Thanksgiving. We went down to the homeless encampment. We actually did 13 miles around Harrisburg and gave out sleeping bag covers for when people were sleeping outside. Me and my buddy John, the guy who wrote the preface to my new book, and The Broken Mirror. And recently I went down just a couple days ago because I heard that they're like kicking them out in September and putting them in a parking lot where they have no shade. And the first guy I met was an Army veteran, multiple MOSs, built this little thing that he had from scratch. He said he's going to be there until they bulldoze it over. He's standing his ground. So I gave him a sundry kit. I kind of videotaped him a little bit off, gave him a sundry kit and a sleeping bag cover. Went around, saw some women in there, saw some animals in there, gave out as much stuff as I could. And they're like, "Why are you here?" And I'm like, "Because, like, why is this stuff just gonna sit?" Like, I live in a studio, a little studio in a hotel room, and I'm like, "Why is my stuff just gonna sit in the backpack or in my RV?" Because I gave a lot of it out while I was on my way back, like North Carolina floods. I stopped at the gas stations and handed them out because, like, you don't go out in the North Carolina backwoods where the flooding was at 4 and 5 in the morning. So I went to like the nearest gas stations and said, "Look, you have these people that come in here. Please give these sundry kits and these sleeping bags out." So that clears my mind a little bit. I do audio monologues, so I have so many audio monologues. Like, I probably could write two more books, but I made a vow after The Broken Mirror I would not write another book. But after seeing all these authors get scammed by different organizations, like they're called mail organizations, where they say, "Hey, you won, but you got to pay for your trophy. Oh, by the way, it's $2,000 to come receive your award and talk, and you got to pay for your flight. You got to pay for your hotel. Oh, by the way, we have a $4,000 event happening in October." And then people just buy onto that. They ride people's shirt tails. So my eyes were open, and I said, when I talk, there's no filter. As you know, there's no filter for me. I will talk what I need to talk about. So the new book, No Filter, with the parental thing as the O instead of the zero, because like it's probably going to get banned because of people under the age of 18. But you have to put that explicit language thing in there anyway. So, but I'm calling out certain people, but this time that book doesn't have to go through the government, through the Pentagon, because I'm not really saying much about why would I repeat what was in the other two books, you know? I'm more talking about the author of myself as a child, things that I want people to understand that it's not okay to do that. I wrote in there about struggling fathers with their daughters, steps. I actually used some of the steps. I used ChatGPT. I would plug in some things to see if it could help me put in some steps that I could help, and then I would talk to my phone, and the words would come out. Um, and like I said before we started talking, I have my cover, but I'm trying to enhance the back of it because I don't have software where I can put like because it's a Halloween book coming out Halloween. I want to incorporate like transparent pumpkins underneath the font on the back of the book. So I didn't know ChatGPT did that. So after 100 tries, we finally got it. So, but yeah, um, I just believe that I don't want to say I'm at peace because I still have demons. And what's very special about my memoir this time, my teenage daughter wrote the first page. It's called Izzy's Diary. I did have it called Izzy Thoughts, and then I changed it to Izzy Story. But I follow the band Breaking Benjamin.
Huh.
They're a great band. They've helped me through my journey in life ever since 2006. They wrote a song called The Diary of Jane. So I actually immediately thought of my kid, and I reached out to my daughter and I said, "There's no script here. You know how I was when I was your dad back in the day and who I am now. I would like you to write. I'm doing a memoir." She's like, "Dad, why didn't you write a memoir from the first time? Like when you did your books and then built the other two books, you know?" I said, "Well, this is the last chapter of my life, kid." So I didn't push her to do it. She wrote the first, after the copyright, her little one pager about she was kind of blind and didn't see what was going on. Like, she didn't say I called her a bitch. She didn't say anything like that. She said that she noticed there was a problem after she started getting a little older with my dad. And eventually, something that he didn't think that would resonate would be where I taught my daughter how to drive,
Huh.
where I would take time for myself because my daughter didn't live with me. Like, I didn't even have custody of my own kid, you know? Before she went to Florida or when she was home on breaks, I would teach her how to drive in different parking lots and stuff. And she said that that is where our bond grew tight. And for me to give up my whole RV journey and stay down in Florida to be with my kid, like she wrote that in there saying that dad's the best thing my dad ever did because he could have just said, the hell with my mom and me. Because I don't like my ex wife, but we get along because of my kid. And I told my daughter, you know, I'm here, but you got to start doing stuff for yourself because your parents aren't going to be here for the rest of your life. So she wrote all that, and it's going to be like, wow, if somebody read the second book, we can't believe that his daughter actually wrote the first page in this book. Like, look at that bond. Look how tight that bond is now, you know?
So, William, the last question I would like to ask you is, why is mental health so important to you?
I believe it's like an apology because I've been like the worst person in the world because I think a lot of my mental health was hidden when I was in the army before it started coming out. Because, like, when I was at Fort Lewis, I won't lie, I think that's when it came out. When I was a staff sergeant, I was a gunnery sergeant. I had a Hispanic platoon sergeant from the other platoon who used to call me the MF word and like, hey, mother, mama, the way he talked was very irritating, but he would do it around the soldiers. So next thing I know, I was in the first sergeant's office with assault with a deadly weapon. So I had taken a tool out of the Connex and kind of basically went after him. I blacked out. I didn't know what was going on, but they put me in a museum at Fort Lewis, and I was a tour guide at the Fort Lewis Military Museum. And let me tell you what, that was probably the opening of my military career as a staff sergeant because I learned military history. It started to clear my mind a little bit because, like, when I was a gunnery sergeant, I used to go to my room and punch the walls until my knuckles bled because
When
I
you
was so
say
bad.
when you say gunnery sergeant, if I remember correctly, the Army does not have the rank of gunnery sergeant. The Marine
In the
Corps is
field artillery, you have a gunny a gunny, like a gunnery sergeant who does the recon for the platoon sergeant and the guns.
Okay,
So
because
that's an
that's
E6, E7 position. To be an E6 as a gunnery sergeant is a huge thing. But me, I think it was not a huge thing because they didn't have enough E7s. So I just fell into the position. But uh, when I was at the museum, uh, I helped set up Sergeant Audie Murphy exhibit because I was inducted in 1997 to the Audie Murphy Leadership Club. I did not know that Audie Murphy flew out of Lewis all the time, was stationed at Lewis. Well, here's a museum that didn't even have one exhibit for Audie Murphy in it. So I got credit for that. And uh, I was the only person in my unit because I got thrown out of my unit. So while I was at the museum, I made E7. And I think it's because they didn't know how to write a relief for cause NCOER. So I think God himself was with me because I was number 56 in the entire army and no one in my unit made the E7 list. So going forward, those kind of things right there make me who I am today. And I try not to be political. I don't like politics. I try to stay away from politics. I've lost a lot of friends over politics, but for mental health in general, I do everything because I feel that I need to apologize for everything that I've put people through. If I, like I said, if my book, if my mental health message in the morning, if my posting or my little videos that I make um, help people, then I did exactly what I needed to do. Like I sent you the life thing, the 27-second video. And also, I don't know if you can play the army one where I'm in my uniform talking about why I'm still here, kind of. I don't know if you got that or not.
I didn't get a chance to look at that one. I looked at several of them, but there was one that had AI background, that was on it.
Was it the 22 a day?
It was the first ones that you sent me. So, it was, the minute clip, minute clip. I listened to the first 3 of them.
Yeah. So I went on CapCut and threw my image on there and had the verbiage come down. So I did that. So I use AI a little bit, but the wording, I say my wording so that you could fill in the wording and then it'll just read out. So, but yeah, um, I just think it's a way of giving back. There's a lot of people struggling out there, man. Like 22 went up to like 44 a day, I heard.
Yeah, it
And I'm not,
goes
let's not even talk about the active side of the house. You know, there's a lot going on that a lot of American people don't know about what's going on in the active side of the psych side. I'm sure you know. Um, I'll say this real quick. I was at Fort Stewart at the campground on my way back up here from Florida, and I met a staff sergeant. No, I met a staff sergeant who's been in the military for 4 years. And that's a huge accomplishment to make staff sergeant in 4 years. MP. And he told me, Sarge, I really appreciate what you're doing, but you have no clue what's going on the active side. He goes, if you only knew how many suicides there were yearly on the active side. And I'm like, elaborate. He said alone in his unit where he was at were 12 in 5 months. I'm like, well, you're part of the leadership. He goes, no, I'm not part of that. He goes, but it is based on poor leadership. People reaching out, leadership thinking they're better than other people. They want to hide it, just like the incident that just came out at Fort Stewart. Everybody was talking different things that were going on. I don't know what the final outcome of that was, but I think a little bit of that was psychiatric side of something. So,
so, when you were talking about the suicides happening in the military, once suicide happens, there's actually been evidence even in schools or anywhere else. As soon as a person completes, they give the other people permission to complete as well. and to unalive themselves, depending on what verbiage you want to use, but to complete suicide. And inside the military, what has actually been happening is that the mental health rates have actually s- been impacted, from what I've been told, and it sucks. It sucks because the leadership is going back to the old and true way of you got to keep moving forward. And
Pat
you're
you
gonna,
on the back, send you out to the fight.
yep. Or the fact is that like I shared this with a buddy of mine. When I came back from Iraq, my first tour, I went to a different unit and I lost my shit on one of my sergeants. And he wants to do a drill, and I told him this is how you get people killed. The I was lucky enough that my comm chief was actually willing to have me go see somebody. He told me I needed to go see somebody because I'm jacked up. Well, he was right. I signed a waiver to go back for my second tour. But the camaraderie, not being able to confide, not being able to share your emotions, and having all these stuck points create these huge barriers with the connection and communication. And I'm really hoping by actually trying to get this type of podcast out there of different people and different behaviors and ways that people are stuck, from books to audio to different modalities, to really, really benefit people's lives. Um, like we were talking before, I don't want to be rushing up this conversation, but I know that we also both have a time crunch. And I want to say, William, I do appreciate it you jumping on. I learned something new about a gunnery sergeant in the artillery army artillery, because the only time I ever heard about a gunnery sergeant is in the Marine Corps. So when you said that to me, I was like, I have to look this up. And you are,
Just saying,
well,
fact checkers.
hey,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
well, when somebody says something to me that is very off-putting to me, I want to be able to make sure if they're full of shit or not, and you're
Were you
not.
check were you checking while I was talking?
I was. I definitely will say I was, because while we we're actually having this conversation, nothing against you, William, but it's just that I used to work at a cemetery as well, and I never seen a gunnery sergeant for while like in all the graves that I went to. I actually seen some specialists from 4 to 6. I've seen wagoneers as an MOS in the Army, actually a rank in the Army. I've never seen gunnery sergeant. So when you said that, I had to go look it up, and you are right about that. So thank you for actually teaching me and possibly teaching whoever else is listening to this, because you're probably like, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?" Like I have a lot of friends that are Marines, and they're gonna be like, "Gunnery sergeant, what kind
Or
of shit?"
people messages like, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?"
That's probably what they're gonna do when they listen to this, because this isn't live right now, and when, like, people actually check this out, they're gonna be like, "Well, what is this?" And then they'll learn something new. And William,
Well,
go ahead.
the thing that I did really, because there are people will look at books and say, "Oh, a veteran wrote this," but they'll be like, "Did a veteran really write this?" Because like when I was talking to Johanna last night, I was telling her the acronyms. She didn't even know what the acronyms were. She's like, "What is this for?" Well, I don't need that in there. And I'm like, "Well, your computer's not going to catch it." But you can tell when a veteran writes something because they use the proper acronyms and abbreviations and stuff. Like I was a sergeant first class, but I put the brackets at SFC, or I was a combat arms assessment team, capital C, capital A, capital A, capital T, because eventually somewhere down in the write up or in the story, I'm going to use it again. And I don't want to write that word out again, you know? And I want people to see that a credible veteran wrote that book, you know? Because I really hate one of my buddies who works very high in the government said, "I love your book, man, but the editing in your last book, it feels like you're actually like just talking, like you didn't even edit it. Like the way you and I talk right now, nothing was edited. It was like the raw me just talking." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I talked on my phone, and my guy who edited it took the word like out because I say the word like a lot." He's like, "There's 80,000 likes in your book, man." So they took all the likes out and reworded it. So, and the guy who edited my last book, he wrote for the Gettysburg battlefield. So, is pretty well edited. So,
I wanted to say I do appreciate your time. I'm gonna upload your books into the description when I actually post this. It's not gonna be posted for probably over a month, and I wanna say today's date is August 24th, so I do appreciate your time, William, and I look forward to conversing with you more through the internet.
yeah, man. Thank you very much, Will. And like I said, all the veterans, thank you for your service, sacrifice. I'm the voice of the voiceless, William Stevens. Thanks, man.